So just starting off, like, what's your personal opinion of physician-assisted suicide?
I think it's okay as long as it's done with enough care, where you made sure that the patient is of sound mind and has made a decision after having thought it through and made the decision for the right reasons. And not, patient hasn't been coerced by anyone for any extraneous reasons to decide to end their life. A lot of other questions do come into play though, as to the ethics of it and that kind of stuff. But I think it's okay because it's, if a person wants to end their life with dignity and not have to live when they're losing that part of their life, if they have no quality of life and have maybe are in a lot of pain and they have to just pull along, then it's probably okay too.
What do you think of the slippery slope factor? Like, if legalizing physician-assisted suicide would lead to like legalized killing, almost in a sense, do you think that's a possible risk? That is a possible risk. It could be that someone who has the power to decide yes or no has some ulterior motive. It could be that they're going to get the wealth of the person who passes away. It could be just that they're have some kind of a tiff and are upset enough that they want to take revenge. So yeah, that is a hard thing to kind of keep separate and make sure that this is truly the patient's desire. And adding on to that, do you think like giving the physicians that kind of power is almost too much? Like, is it something that should be reserved for a higher power, or like God, maybe, or like, do you think it's within their power to actually decide when to end someone's life?
Yeah, I think that's why there's so much debate about if it's it should be done or not, and if it's right or wrong, because it does feel like the physician is playing God in the situation. No, a physician is saying, yeah, I can do this, so let me go ahead and do it. And it really should not be another human being's ability to end someone's life, because then it is definitely called a murder, or it's not, and that's not what a physician takes an oath to do. So so it's kind of.
By oath, do you mean the Hippocratic Oath, or? Okay.
Yeah, so we all have to take the Hippocratic Oath when we get our license to practice, and the basic thing about it is that we're not going to do any harm to anyone. And so this does seem like you're intentionally harming someone just because you can. So it is. It's ethically wrong if you look at it that way, but if you look at it from the patient's perspective, it could be right in certain situations too.
Could you elaborate a little more on when it would be right?
It could be that, for example, a patient has an illness that is progressive, and there is no treatment to stop the progression and help them improve. And they've already maybe had the illness for a few years now, and they've seen their own deterioration. And maybe at this point they are completely dependent on someone else for all their cares. They probably only have the mental faculties of being alert and aware of what's going on around them. And there could be pain associated with their situation too. And so they can see it as, there is no relief from this, I'm not going to get better. So why prolong my own suffering? You know, and it's hard to tell how much longer they have left. Is it going to be, even if it's the same condition, is it going to be, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so they can say, okay, I can take this for another 2 weeks if I know that it's going to come to an end. And so in a situation like that, when they've actually been through enough and they know that they're not going to improve, in a situation like that, it might be okay if it is truly and completely their decision to do it.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, if it was legalized in Minnesota, it's hard to apply to every single case. I mean, it's hard to like weed out which ones are like almost hopeless cases and which ones are just maybe cases of depression or other forms of just like wanting to end their life.
Yeah, or maybe coercion from someone. It could be that the family is burdened financially and are sort of coercing the patient to end their life. So it is difficult to find those things out. Depression probably is the one thing that could be detected a little more easily by getting a physician who does that for a living involved, so they can evaluate them and see if that's a part of their reasoning for ending their life. But if there are other social issues that are leading to it, those are hard to detect unless someone talks about it with the caregivers. So.
Yeah. We went over like some of the ethics now, but what about the financial implications of physician-assisted suicide? Such as like the burden on the family or on their own finances, like if they have a will that they want to leave behind. Do you think it would play a factor if they got a physician-assisted suicide or they just prolonged it? Would it affect their decision, I guess?
I would think in a lot of these kind of cases, finances would be playing a big role. The reason being medical care is very expensive, and if someone's going through an illness for a long period of time, they've probably put in a lot of money already. And the way the law stands, before the state will support you, you have to kind of spend down in whatever you have, even if it's savings. And you have to spend down to a very small amount. I want to say it's like you have to be left with $3,000 before someone else will pick up and help you out. So that surely, so the person might have, I don't know, a wife, a husband, whoever, a partner that is going to be around for much longer than them, and or it could be just their children and family that they were hoping to help out in the long term, and they're using up all their savings or whatever they've earned just for their own care. So it definitely plays a huge role because of the expenses of medical care.
Do you think as a result it would target, I guess, almost lower class people because they have less money to start off with, so they might be more, they might feel more pressured to get a physician-assisted suicide?
Yeah, I guess it would depend on where they started out, and their worries probably will start much sooner than someone who's a little better off because they have lesser amount to spend on the patient. So that would be the situation when you would worry about the patient being coerced into physician-assisted suicide rather than it being their own decision to go ahead and do so.
Mm-hmm. Is that part of the reason why you think physician-assisted suicide is still illegal in Minnesota? Do you think that plays a major role, and what other issues might you see?
I would think there are a lot of different things that play a role in it being not legalized in a lot of the states. ethically, I think it's wrong, so that would be a strong point. Financially, instead of saying just financially, it can make room for wrongdoing. The finances can lead to someone coercing a patient into ending their life, so that's really not ethically right either. Religious beliefs can come in the way of making these decisions also. So I would think it's kind of a combination of all those three. And like I said, the financial piece can be one, and worrying about someone actually being sort of a murder rather than a physician-assisted suicide is something that will also come in the way of making those decisions to legalize it. Legalizing it is going to make it much easier for a physician to go ahead and assist someone, so it really stops them.
And sometimes it's kind of hard to determine if the patient like truly wants that, or if it's kind of like a spur of the moment kind of thing. Right.
Yeah, so if it does so happen that it's legalized, there will have to be a lot of checks and balances put in place before it's carried out. It cannot be taken lightly, and it cannot be done if a patient asks for it today. A physician can't go in and say, oh, this is legal, this is what you want, let's go ahead and do it, and let's set up tomorrow for the date to go ahead and carry this out. So there'll have to be a lot more people involved to investigate, make sure that there's nothing that can be done to help this patient out, to change their decision from the suicide to staying alive. And supporting them that way, and giving them enough time to actually rethink it and not just decide, I've had enough because they're having a bad day, and go ahead with it.
Just as a general summary, if you could just list like the pros and cons you see with legalizing physician-assisted suicide in Minnesota.
I think the biggest thing is for pros, I would think the main thing would be that the patient has a right to make a decision, has a right to end their life if they want to go with dignity, so that would help the patient out immensely, not having to fight the whole system, even though they know that this is the right decision that they're making. But the cons would be a lot more. It would make it easier for a physician to go ahead and assist a patient with the physician-assisted suicide. A physician might not take the care to ensure that that's the right decision, and it's not being done because they're coerced or spur of the moment, or they're depressed. A physician could just go ahead and do it because it's legal now. Families could take advantage of the situation and try to coerce a patient into ending their lives, maybe for financial gains. Could be because of other reasons, like they do have some animosity and want to take revenge on the patient maybe. I think it just would make it much easier to go ahead and do something that's probably not the right ethical choice most of the time. So it takes that burden off the physician on saying I can't do this because this is ethically wrong and this is illegal too. It makes it much easier to go ahead and do it.
Right. Well, thank you for your time.
Sure.